want to start a new series that highlights some study tips that I've kind of gathered as I've learned from Hebrew scholars and Jewish scholars. And so this is the first one that I'm going to do, and it's about using the source text of the scriptures to define words and to understand concepts and ideas. So let's dive into the scriptures. We're going to start out with the Book of Mormon, because in other places that I've looked, there are other examples, but for me this is a really clear example of this first study skill that I want to highlight. So the context of this chapter, it's 1 Nephi chapter 5. Nephi and his brothers have just come back from Jerusalem out into the wilderness with the brass plates. And the brass plates were a record of the Jews, and he's gonna tell us what's in there, but I want to highlight what happens when they bring him to their father Lehi. This is verse 10. And after they had given thanks unto God of Israel, the God of Israel, my father Lehi took the records which were engraven upon the plates of brass, and he did search them from the beginning. Okay. For years and years I would read over this and think that he just started at the beginning and he started to read and he read all the way through. But when I learned from a Jewish mentor that I've kind of adopted as a mentor, he might not think of me as a mentor, but or he might not think of me as a student, but I look up to him and try and learn things from him. One of the things he teaches is that when you see prophetic markers, when you see names, when you see keywords, and I'll do a video in the future of how to recognize what those are. I can't say that I'm able to recognize all of them. It seems like there's prophetic markers everywhere. But what you do when you think you might have something is you take that term and you trace it back to its original usage in the Torah, which is the 5 books of Moses. Now, why would we do that? Well, the reason we would do that is because if you think about, okay, in this context, if you're Nephi and Lehi and you're out in the wilderness, right? You're not around other people. You can't ask a teacher. You can't ask the prophet even, Jeremiah. He's not there. So you go to the scriptures to get guidance, to get direction, to receive revelation. And so when it comes to understanding the way the Lord is working, you want to be in line with the prophets. Well, if you think about going back a little bit, let's say you're the prophet Samuel, right? Samuel would be after Joshua, so it's after like the conquest of Canaan, right? They're still kind of conquesting Canaan because there's still people in the area, right? But Samuel's a prophet, and at the time, what scriptures do they have? At the time of Samuel, they have Judges, the book of Judges, they have the book of Joshua, and they have the 5 books of Moses. If you're in Jesus' time, what scriptures do you have? You don't have any of the New Testament. It hasn't been written yet. So you have all of the Old Testament prophets, the writings of the prophets. You have what the Jews call the writings. So you have like Psalms and Proverbs, and then you have the Torah. You have the 5 books of Moses. So everything goes back to the Torah. If you trace back where it all came from, it goes back to the Torah. And the Torah acts as more than just a source text for ideas, but it also acts as like a type of dictionary where you can define terms, you can define concepts, and also like a thesaurus, you can cross-reference words, you can look at similar words. And it works best when you're doing it in Hebrew, because that's what it was originally written in. So it works really well if you find a word, take it back to its usage in the Torah and look up its Hebrew meaning, and then look at how Moses used it in his writings. So that's what I see that Lehi is doing here when Nephi says he did search them from the beginning. This word search, the word search, isn't the word read, like I used to think. I thought it was just he was just reading the books from the beginning. But the word search, if you translate that English word back to its Hebrew word, you will find that it is the word hakar. So it's a hard H sound and then a Q and an R. And this word means to search. And I have an ancient Hebrew dictionary here that I love to use because what it does is it takes the meaning back to what it would have been before, or likely would have been before the exile to Babylon, which is where most of the modern Hebrew comes from. So in this ancient Hebrew dictionary by Jeff Benner, and that's probably backwards for you, but it's really good. Jeff Benner, look him up. This says that the word hakar is translation to examine. That's the translation. The definition is to intently search or seek for details. Well, what is Lehi looking for? It could be anything, right? But we know, because of later verses, what he finds. So let's continue reading. So 1 Nephi chapter 5, verse 11. And he beheld that they did contain, so talking about the plates of brass, they did contain the 5 books of Moses. So there's the source text, which gave an account of the creation of the world, and also of Adam and Eve, who were our first parents, and also a record of the Jews from the beginning, even down to the commencement of the reign of Zedekiah, king of Judah. So whereas the Bible has more, their record ends at Zedekiah, and the reason is because Nephi takes the plates from Jerusalem during the reign of Zedekiah. So there is nothing past Zedekiah, because that's when they're actually living. So the Bible has more as far as what happens right after Zedekiah, but probably only a little bit. And then verse 13. And also the prophecies of the holy prophets from the beginning, even down to the commencement of the reign of Zedekiah. So they have all the prophecies of the holy prophets, right? Clear up to Zedekiah. So anyone who prophesied before Zedekiah, they have most, if not all of that. And also many prophecies which have been spoken by the mouth of Jeremiah. So Jeremiah was actually the prophet during this time. And so they have some of his words, right? Verse 14, and it came to pass that my father Lehi also found upon the plates of brass a genealogy of his fathers. Wherefore he knew that he was a descendant of Joseph, yea, even that Joseph who was the son of Jacob, who was sold into Egypt, and who was preserved by the hand of the Lord, that he might preserve his father Jacob and all his household from perishing with famine. So, unlike our Bible that contains very little genealogy, the plates of brass had what sounds like a more complete genealogy, at least of Joseph's line. Seems like in the Bible we get some of Levi here and there, and we get a lot of Judah's lineage through the different books. And I kind of wonder, just because of how we get it in the Bible, if there was some other like genealogy record that was kept alongside the rest of the scriptures, and then later when the Bible was being compiled, that those genealogies got put into those different places, like in Ruth, when it gives a little genealogy of that line of Judah. Let's see, there's something else here, I think. Nope, that's pretty much it. So the point here being that Lehi searched them, so was intently looking for specific details from the beginning. So I take that to mean what I've learned from Jews and Jewish scholars. And I think in you can look up, I think they call it first mention. So if you look up what is first mention in scripture study or something like that, Google search that, that's basically the same thing. It's like, when was the first time this concept or word was used, and how was it used? And that's how it needs to be used. That's how it needs to be understood in this other context. So, what's a good example? You could do, so probably the easiest thing to do is names. Take somebody's name and go find where it's first used in the scriptures, especially if you can find it in the Torah, and see how it's used in context. So for example, if you've seen my study on Jonah, my video on Jonah, you know that Jonah means dove. Well, go look at where the word dove is used in the 5 books of Moses, and that will tell you a lot about Jonah. Okay, hope you guys enjoy. Drop a comment if you have questions or comments about this study topic, and we'll see you soon.